300,000 years ago. Central Europe. Early morning, the spear in the hand. That is the first thing that exists. Before the cold, before the light, before the sounds of the morning forest. The spear. It was nearby while he slept. It is here now. 2.5 meters of spruce, dried and straightened over fire, with a sharpened tip made from the hardest part of the trunk, the butt end. Light for its length. Balanced, with the center of gravity shifted toward the tip, as it should be for throwing. This is not a random stick. It is several days of work. It is the choice of the right tree, the right trunk, the right section. It is scraping with stone, straightening over heat, testing the balance again and again until it feels right. It is knowledge of what a spear should be. Knowledge not invented by one person, but accumulated across generations, passed down through observation and practice, now living in the hands of this creature as something so familiar that it no longer requires thought. The spear is part of the body, an extension of the arm, an extension of intention. Morning. A forest wakes differently from a savanna. The savanna is open. You can see far there. There is a horizon there. You can always judge distance and direction. A forest is different. Here the trees compress space. Here visibility is a few dozen meters, and then trunks and shadows. Here sounds rebound and come from every side, and it is harder to tell where they began. Homo heidelbergensis lived in such a forest. This branch of humans, not Homo erectus now, but later more complex people, came to Europe from Africa. It brought technology, knowledge, social structure, and it adapted to the fact that this was not savanna. This was temperate climate, deciduous and mixed forest, deer and horses and rhinoceroses and mammoths, severe winters that Africa had never known. Adaptation meant a different kind of hunt. Not the one that worked in open land. A different one. The group. There are 12 of them, not a random number. Exactly as many as this hunt requires. Fewer, and they will not manage the drive. More, and there is too much noise, too much unpredictability, too much difficulty in coordination. 12. All adults or nearly adults. All men, or perhaps several women among them. That question remains open in anthropology because different ancient human cultures may have distributed roles in different ways. They stand at the edge of the forest. Quiet, almost motionless. Below them is a river valley. A gentle slope covered with tall grass leads down to the river, which is visible now as a glint through the trees. At the river there is a watering place, and there are horses. They can be seen even from here. A small herd, 10 perhaps, maybe 12. They are drinking. They are grazing. They do not scent the group. The wind is right. It blows from the horses to the humans, not the other way around. The distance is about 200 meters. Too far for a throw. Too far for now. Tension. What is happening in the body right now is not a metaphor. Cortisol rose before dawn, when the group first set out. Adrenaline rose a little later when they saw the horses. The heart is beating faster. Breathing is controlled, deliberately slower than the body wants. Because fast breathing can be heard, and right now it must not be heard. The muscles are ready. Not rigidly tensed, that would mean fatigue, but in a state of readiness, in that specific balance between relaxation and mobilization that comes before explosive movement. This is familiar to anyone who has ever waited for a start. An athlete on the blocks. An actor behind the curtain. A person before an important conversation. It is that same state, the same neurochemistry, the same systems. 300,000 years have passed, and the body reacts the same way. Because it is the same kind of situation. High stakes, uncertain outcome. The need to act precisely and on time. The cost of a mistake is significant. The brain does not distinguish between an important hunt and an important performance. It only knows this matters. And it prepares the body accordingly, the plan. And this is where it becomes most interesting. They have a plan. Not in the sense that someone has drawn a diagram or written instructions, but they know who is going where. They know what will happen at what moment. They know how the horses will move if they are disturbed from one side. They know where those who throw the spears will be standing. This is joint planning. This is theory of mind applied to the practice of hunting. Theory of mind is the ability to understand that another being thinks, sees, and feels. To understand that the other exists as a separate subject with a separate perspective. It is one of the most complex cognitive achievements. Most animals either do not have it or possess only a rudimentary form. Primates have the beginning of it. Humans have the developed version. Without theory of mind, it is impossible to plan shared action. Because for planning, you must imagine what the other will do. Not just he will go there, but what he sees, what he thinks, how he will understand the signal. These 12 beings stand at the edge of the forest, and each of them holds not only his own part of the plan in mind, each holds parts of the other's plan as well. He knows that when those two on the right begin making noise, the horses will run there. He knows that when the horses run there, the three at the far edge will be ready. He knows that his task is to be here, at this moment, with the spear in his hand. This is a model of another's behavior. This is the ability to predict what another will do in a situation that does not yet exist. This is future planning. The signal. Someone, older in the group, the one who knows this place, and this hunt better than the others, makes an almost invisible movement with the hand. Now, the group separates. Silently, without words, several bodies simply begin moving in different directions, each one knowing where to go. No one looks at the others to make sure. They simply know. This knowledge exists in the group as something shared, a common map that each individual carries separately, but all hold the same at its crucial points. This is what linguists and cognitive scientists call common knowledge, or shared intentionality. Knowledge not just that others know, but knowledge that others know that you know. A closed loop of mutual understanding. It is one of the things that makes human cooperation unique. Ants cooperate, but through chemical signals, without individual understanding. Wolves hunt in packs, but their coordination is simpler, less flexible, less adaptive to changes in the situation. Humans can adapt a joint plan in real time to a changing situation because each individual understands the plan as a whole, not only his own part. Movement. The grass is high. The legs move through it carefully. Not because the grass is an obstacle, but because noise is. Every step is deliberate. Where to place the foot. How to shift the weight. How not to touch a dry branch. This is the movement of a hunter, not the movement with which we walk on sidewalks. There we think about anything and do not think about walking at all. The body does everything on its own. Here every step is conscious, every movement is controlled. And that requires enormous concentration. At the same time, he must track what is underfoot, what is ahead, where the horses are, where the other members of the group are. He must keep the plan in mind. He must watch the wind, whether it has changed. He must prepare the body for a throw that has not yet come but will come. The prefrontal cortex at this moment is working at full capacity. That part of the brain that governs planning, impulse control, and the ability to hold several streams of information at once. In Homo heidelbergensis, it was already highly developed. Brain volume in this species reached 1,200 to 1,400 cubic centimeters, almost like ours. Almost like us, the horses. They are still at the water. Closer now, about 100 meters away. Individual animals can already be distinguished. One is larger than the others, a mare or a stallion. Several young ones. One old animal with scars on its side, traces of earlier encounters with predators. They do not scent anything. The wind holds. Good. And then the moment. The two on the right begin making noise. Suddenly, loudly. Shouts, sticks, striking wood, crashing branches. The horses throw up their heads. A fraction of a second of panic, and then rapid movement. The herd turns and runs exactly where expected, toward the narrow place between the trees and the edge of a small ravine, toward where the others are standing. The throw. The body knows what to do. It does not think, it knows. This is the difference that neurophysiologists call the difference between declarative and procedural memory. Declarative memory is, I know that a spear should be thrown at a 45-degree angle. Procedural memory is the arm moving into the correct position by itself, the body turning on its own, the weight shifting on its own, and the spear flying. Procedural memory is formed through repetition, through thousands of throws in practice. Through teaching, when an older hunter shows the movement, the younger watches and repeats, again and again, until the motion sinks into the muscles. That is how the art of spear throwing was transmitted. Not through words, but through the body. Through demonstration and repetition. Through what anthropologists call imitation-based learning, one of the most powerful mechanisms of skill transmission in primates, brought in humans to an extraordinary degree of complexity. The spear flies. What happens in the air? The Schöningen spears, the ones found in Germany, were studied in detail. Aerodynamically, they correspond to a modern sports javelin in their essential characteristics. This is not an accident. It is the result of many generations of trial and error, of accumulated knowledge about how a projectile should fly. The center of gravity is shifted toward the front end, which provides stability in flight, so the tip moves forward and does not tumble. Length and weight are balanced in a way that allows a sufficient distance and sufficient force. This is engineering, without blueprints, without formulas, without education in our sense. But engineering all the same. An understanding of physical principles through experience and observation. The ability to improve a tool from generation to generation, keeping what works and changing what does not. This is cumulative culture. Each generation stands on the shoulders of the previous one. It does not invent from nothing, but takes what already exists and makes it slightly better. This capacity to accumulate knowledge and improvement across generations is one of the defining characteristics of the human being. It is what led from a wooden spear to a smartphone, not through a leap, but through a million tiny improvements, each of them barely noticeable on its own. The impact. The horse does not fall immediately. This is important to know. It is important to understand that hunting was not easy and clean. A horse is a large and powerful animal. A spear, even when accurately thrown, does not kill at once. Another strike is needed. The hunters must come closer, and that is dangerous, because a wounded animal is unpredictable. The group works. This is another moment of coordination. Who comes around from which side? Who distracts? Who delivers the next blow? It is a plan again, improvised now because the situation has changed, but still a plan. Each individual reads the situation and acts in accordance with a shared understanding of the goal. And it is dangerous. A wounded horse weighs several hundred kilograms. A kick or a bite can inflict a severe injury. This is not abstract danger. It is a real probability of trauma that, in the conditions of 300,000 years ago without medicine, almost always meant death or a long period of disability. They still go in. Because food matters more than fear. Because behind them there is a group, children, elders, nursing mothers, who need this meat. Because the group beside them lowers the risk for each individual. Because this is what they know how to do. After. The horse is dead. This is a special kind of silence. Not the silence of nothing happening, but the silence after. After something loud and fast this arrives. The body of the animal is immense. The true scale of the prey becomes clear only now when they stand beside it. This is a great deal of meat. A very great deal of meat. Food for the whole group, not for one day, but for several. Bones from which marrow can be taken. Hide that can be used. A major success. What happens in the brain at this moment? Dopamine. The same neurotransmitter of anticipation and reward now arrives as payment. As the completion of the cycle. Tension was rising, and now it has been resolved. The goal existed, and now it has been reached. The reward system in the brain releases what has been building. This is not simply good. It is a physiological experience of success. Deep, bodily, powerful. It is exactly this experience that motivates the behavior to happen again. It is exactly this that reinforces the actions that brought success. It is exactly this that turns a behavior into a skill, through reward following the correct action. And it is the same mechanism that, thousands of years later, will work when a human solves a difficult mathematical problem, when an artist finishes a painting, when a scientist finds an answer. When a programmer finally finds the bug in the code, the same system, the same neurochemistry, the same force of experience, it worked. That is one of the strongest sensations available to the human brain. And it appeared here, beside this dead horse on the riverbank 300,000 years ago. Butchering. Now a different kind of work begins. Stone tools are already with them. Hand axes, scrapers, flakes. The Acheulean industry, a stoneworking technology that existed for more than 1,000,000 years, so effective for its purposes and so stable that it changed very little over that span. A bifacial hand axe, symmetrical, with its edges prepared correctly, is no longer simply a stone. It is a tool with a design. A tool whose shape is determined not by an accidental flake, but by deliberate removal of what is unnecessary. This is abstract thought in action. To make a hand axe, one must see in a lump of stone something that does not yet exist. One must hold the final result in mind and work toward it. This is what philosophers call teleological thinking, thought that moves from goal to means. The butchering begins. This too is a skill. This too is knowledge. Where to make the cut, how to remove the hide without damaging the meat, how to reach the marrow, how to divide the carcass so it can be carried more easily, what to take now and what to leave. This is knowledge that has been completely removed from the personal experience of most of us. Most people in the 21st century have never butchered a large animal and have no idea how it is done. The knowledge has vanished from ordinary life. It remains only in specialized professions. But here, everyone knows it. It is part of the basic competence of an adult. It is something without which survival is impossible. The smell of blood. Let us speak openly about it, because it is part of reality. The smell of blood is strong. It carries far. It attracts. The group knows this. That is why they work quickly. That is why several of them keep looking around, not at the prey, but at the forest, toward the directions from which competition may come. Hyenas, wolves, perhaps a cave lion, perhaps another group of humans. Prey is competition too. It is threat as well. The meat of a large animal in an open place attracts everything that eats meat within several kilometers. That is why speed matters. That is why the group works like a single mechanism. Some butcher, some stand watch, others are already organizing what they will carry. And that is why fire changed all of this. With fire, they could return with prey to shelter and cook there in relative safety. Without fire, they had to eat quickly or carry chunks away quickly. Fire lengthened the time they could safely access the resource. It gave them the ability to work more slowly and more carefully. Again, fire changes everything. The return, they carry it. Chunks of meat wrapped in hide, tied to poles, dragged on backs. It is heavy. Several kilometers back to the place of occupation, tired legs and arms after the hunt, after the butchering, after the stress. And now, talk. Now they can speak. The dangerous part is over. There is prey. There are no predators nearby. The group is going home. And what appears is what appears in humans after a shared intense experience. Talking about it. Sounds, gestures, repeated movements. Someone shows how the spear flew. Someone reenacts the moment when the horses ran. Someone laughs. Laughter appeared very early in humans. It is one of the most conservative social signals and exists in some form across all primates. This is the first retelling. The first story of what happened, told by those who took part to other participants who also saw it all and still want to say it aloud. This is not information transfer. Everyone already has the information. It is the shared re-experiencing of what happened through retelling. It is the social reinforcement of the event. This is the beginning of narrative. What will later become the tradition of telling hunting stories? What will become epic poems about heroes? What will become history as a discipline? What will become literature? What will become cinema? All of it begins here, in this return home with heavy pieces of meat on their shoulders and the desire to say, "Did you see how it flew?" Those who stayed behind. At the camp, there are others. Children, elders. Those who did not hunt because of age, because of physical condition, because they specialized in something else. They waited. They knew the group had gone. They may even have heard the noise of the hunt from far away. And now the group returns. And this too is an event, a social moment. Who has come back? What they look like. Whether there is prey, the distribution of food is one of the most important social practices among hunter-gatherers. Who gets how much? Who eats first? How it is divided between those who hunted and those who did not. Studies of modern hunter-gatherers, peoples who still live in similar ways and who have been studied by anthropologists, show remarkably complex systems of distribution. It is not simply the strong take more. There are subtle rules. The hunter who killed the animal often receives less than one would expect because there are norms of generosity, norms of sharing, norms of reciprocal generosity. You share now because you know that next time someone will share with you. This is reciprocity. This is the gift economy. This is the social contract in its oldest form. Perhaps it is already here, already 300,000 years ago. The children watch. Here they are, the young beings who have not hunted yet, who have not yet thrown a spear for real, who watched today, saw part of it, saw something, and who will watch many more times. Learning through observation is the first pedagogy. Not through explanation, not through instruction, through watching someone who knows how to do it, watching for a long time, then trying it yourself, receiving feedback, something goes wrong, the elder shows how it should be done, then trying again. This is the transmission of skill through the body. And it works only if the young individual is intelligent enough to understand what exactly must be copied, to understand not only the movement, but the purpose of the movement. Not simply, he does it like this, but he does it like this because he wants that. This is again theory of mind. Again an understanding of another's intention. That is exactly why humans learn through observation far more effectively than other animals. That is exactly why culture became cumulative, because each new member of the group can absorb everything that has already been accumulated instead of starting from zero. One of the children takes a stick. He swings. The stick flies badly. One of the adults comes over, takes his hand, shows him how to hold it. That is how the spear is passed on. That is how the hunt is passed on. That is how everything is passed on. The fire in the evening. The meat is cooking. Pieces on the coals, pieces in the direct flame, pieces suspended on sticks. Different methods because over thousands of years the group learned that the results are different. Some things are better done one way, some another. This knowledge lives in the group. The fire lights the faces. And again, what was there before returns? Relaxation, closeness. Conversation becomes easier. Food arrives, and with food comes a different state. Not hunger, not the tension of the hunt, not the fatigue of the road. Something else. Satisfaction. This too is neurochemistry. Serotonin arriving when basic needs are met. When there is food, when there is shelter, when the group is near, when there is no immediate threat. This is one of the rarest states in the lives of these beings. It does not happen every day. Sometimes once every few days. Sometimes less often. That is why it is so powerful. That is why we value it so much. We who live in a world where basic needs are met for most of us most of the time, and still seek this feeling that everything is all right now. This fullness, without anxiety. This peaceful state that the brain recognizes as precious. Because it was precious. Because it happened rarely. Because the brain that learned to value this state, the brain that produced the strongest positive reinforcement, when it arrived, was the brain most motivated to do what was necessary for it to happen again. The hunt, again, tomorrow. What we know and how. The Schöningen spears, 8 wooden spears discovered in a coal mine in Lower Saxony between 1994 and 1999, about 300,000 years old. They were preserved because they fell into a bog that created anaerobic conditions. Without oxygen, wood does not rot as quickly. Together with the spears, there were horse bones. More than 10 individuals. Cut marks on the bones. Analysis showed that the horses were healthy at the time of death. This was hunting, not scavenging. Hunting of living animals. This is one of the most convincing and best preserved examples of coordinated hunting in the Pleistocene. Before this discovery, some researchers doubted that spear-based hunting of large game was a systematic practice so early. After Schoeningen, there was less doubt. Research on Acheulean tools, the bifacial hand axes that appeared about 1.7 million years ago and lasted until roughly 200 to 300,000 years ago, shows an impressive stability of form, despite the complete absence of written instruction. This implies effective transmission of technical knowledge across generations, through teaching and imitation. This is the first stable technological tradition. DNA analysis of Homo heidelbergensis populations from different sites points to substantial genetic exchange between groups. That means contact, that means movement. That means social networks wider than a single local group. This is no longer simply a group surviving. This is a network of groups that know of one another's existence, that interact, that exchange people, and probably knowledge as well. What remains in us from this hunt? We still hunt, in sport, in business, in science. The language of hunting runs through our speech. Pursue a goal, catch a break, aim, miss. These are not accidental metaphors. They are traces. The thrill of pursuit is the neurochemistry of the hunt. That is why video games are so gripping. They reproduce the structure of hunting: goal, pursuit, reward. That is why marketers speak of shopping as hunting for discounts. Because the process of seeking and obtaining what is desired activates the same systems. Cooperation in a group with a shared goal is deep within us. That is why working in a team on a difficult problem creates such a distinctive experience. That is why military brotherhood is so powerful, because shared risk and shared success create a bond difficult to reproduce in any other context. That is why team sports are more popular than individual sports, because victory together resonates with something ancient. Planning, the ability to hold a complex scenario of future actions in the mind and coordinate it with others, is one of the great achievements of the human brain. It was born in the hunt. It grew in the hunt. And now it is what allows us to build structures, fly into space, develop vaccines. That plan at the edge of the forest is the prototype of all plans. The transmission of skill through observation and repetition is still the basis of most learning. A child learns to speak not from a textbook, but by listening, learns to walk by trying and watching. A surgeon learns to operate by standing beside someone who already knows how. This is not a flaw in education. It is the oldest and most effective method of transmitting complex skill. We copy. We always have. It began there with the horse in the valley 300,000 years ago. The ending. The fire is dying down. The meat has been eaten, not all of it. Some has been kept for tomorrow. The bones are stacked nearby. Tomorrow they will break them open for marrow. The hide has been stretched and is drying. Nothing has been thrown away. Nothing has been lost. The group sleeps. Tomorrow again. Not necessarily a hunt. Perhaps a search for roots, perhaps movement to another place, perhaps shaping stone, repairing tools, something else. Life is a sequence of tasks. It is the continuous solving of problems. It is movement that never ends, from one necessity to another. And there is nothing tragic in that. It is simply life, as it was, as it remains beneath all the layers of our comfort and technology. The same in its foundations. Because the brain is the same. Because the systems are the same. Because what motivated them still motivates us. To plan, to cooperate, to act, to receive a reward, to tell others about it, again and again. From the horse by the river to the meeting in the conference room, it is the same loop, the same neurochemistry, the same deep structure of what it means to be human.